This is gokusondbz, and today I have a special presentation comic book review. The very first issue of Spawn, which last time I checked was either ranked the number 2 or number 3 best-selling comic book of all time. No surprise, because this was the very first, of course, comic of Spawn, which of course was the brainchild of obviously Todd McFarlane, which is renowned as one of the greatest Spider-Man artists of all time, which worked on like 32 issues of Spider-Man, and also even created the design of Venom, which shouldn't be surprised because if you look at some of the designs on Spawn, there are similarities to Venom. But this came out in, I believe it was 1992 when Spawn debuted. And of course, some of the basics of Spawn, as we know, were he was originally in life, he worked for the government, was a professional assassin named Al Simmons, who of course later on would be betrayed by him, his boss, would be set on fire and sent to hell, and there would be fooled to become a hell spawn at the hands of him, Malebolgia, or also known as the devil to most. But in this series he's known as Malebolgia. He makes a deal with Al Simmons to become his hell spawn and to become his general of his army of hell to invade heaven. Awesome picture right there. Awesome artwork design. And of course that's a police detective and his partner that you'll come to know throughout like the Spawn series. He's really fascinating, really. And Al Simmons, or Spawn, of course today is regarded as perhaps the single greatest comic book anti-hero ever created, and was made by third-party group Image Comics, which was co-founded by, of course, Todd McFarlane himself. And anybody that's watched any of my past videos and stuff on some things involving comics, they know that I'm a humongous fan of Todd McFarlane, and also a huge Spawn fan. Spawn is what actually got me into comics in the 90s. Well, what first got me interested in comics was, to be fair, Spider-Man, but then later on I got introduced to the little bit more mature comics Spawn, which is what really got me hooked and interested. Now, Spawn comics, of course, were never approved by the family group that would rate comics and stuff and approve of it for all ages. Spawn was not. Spawn was rated 13 and up. So you had to be at least a teenager in order to even purchase it. Todd McFarlane would go on to help co-create and do artwork for others comics, such as Dark Horse, Image Comics, of course, now the series known as The Walking Dead. Todd McFarlane worked on the artwork. Of course, there's a better picture of Malebolgia, but basically the deal is he gives Spawn he will be allowed to go back to the Earth as long as he agrees to become the general of Malebolgia's armies to invade heaven. And in return, he would be returned to the Earth to see his wife, of course, Wanda. And in the end, that's what does Al Simmons in, is his love for his wife. But he returns to the Earth 5 years later to see that Wanda has married his best friend and colleague. As you can see, I've always loved the whole design and look of Spawn, even through his different innovations and different looks. I've always loved Spawn, and always will love Spawn. And that was a look/review of the very first issue of Spawn from 1992. May of 92. And yes, it is ranked as second or third best-selling comic series of all time. Well, single comic book. This sold like 1.5 or however million copies sold. And today, since the new millennia, the best-selling comic was the debut of the Star Wars redone series by Marvel Comics, which sold only like 900,000. So since the new millennia, not one comic has actually done 1 million copies in sales. But this comic, on the other hand, did. This debuted as, like, I believe the single greatest debut for any comic ever. But I recommend you, if you've never at all ever read Spawn or never seen any artwork from Todd McFarlane, I highly recommend you check out either Spawn or check out some other stuff he's co-written on and stuff, like I believe a series called Haunted, and also, of course, some of The Walking Dead that Todd McFarlane's worked on, and I believe he's working on a few new side projects. And, of course, the first issue of the new Spawn series recently came out several months ago called Spawn Resurrection. And I highly recommend you check that out. But, as always, this is, of course, gokusondbz. And I hope you like this. Please thumb up the video. As always, please subscribe and let other people know about my channel. And give me ideas for future reviews. Comic book, possibly movie review, or anime review. Or, of course, video game review, obviously, and top 12s. So, and of course, you can follow me at twitter.com/gokusondbz, and I'll see you all next time here in YouTube land.